Hi all. Today we're talking about the Celestine prophecy and I think the 4 ways that people manipulate energy. We're also talking about the archetype of the vampire. We're talking about empaths and narcissists and how that interaction is actually, what's the word? Symbiotic in a weird way until the person heals. Okay, so let me do this. It's very cold here in Bloem. Okay, so let's start at the beginning. There's a book called The Celestine Prophecy. It's really great. They also made a movie about it that I think you can find on YouTube, which is pretty freaking awesome. And in there, they explain the 4 ways that people manipulate energy. So when we are born, as I said in my previous video, when we experience trauma, we either go into feeling less or we go into feeling more. We either go to the narcissistic side, which is the feeling less, or we go into the empathic floor mat, neurotic side. And this side is character disorder, this side is neurotic. Now, because of the matrix and because of how the matrix has been programmed and because of trauma that actually comes from that programming, we all experience rejection, isolation, fear, not good enoughness as children. We all experience loneliness as children, right? And because of this, because children actually need their community and need their parents, something happens to the psyche, right? So either the person goes, okay, I can't trust anyone, I can only self-source, screw everyone else, or they become even more manipulative, right, to get that energy because they need it. So the 4 ways that the Celestine prophecy says that we steal energy is 1, poor me. So poor me, we've all met these people, right? Poor me almost wears everything that has happened to them like a badge, right? All diseases, all past traumas, all depressions, and within a few minutes of meeting them, they will either bring up the disease or they will bring up the past. And when they are in relationships, they manipulate people by guilt tripping them, right? And they're not even aware of it, but if you loved me, you would, right? I've been through so much pain. You must do this and this and this, right? And they never say it straight up. They're not even aware of the fact that they did it, right? But those are the children that maybe got a little sick and then their parents gave them more attention for a little while and their subconscious mind went, hey, wait a minute, this feels good. And the sad thing about poor me is if you can't see it, you'll never break out of it and you won't even heal diseases that you have. Even if, let's say, the medicine pitches up whatever that form, what form that may take, because your subconscious mind has vested interest in being sick and being depressed and being the victim, right? You will avoid healing. So that is poor me. The second type is interrogator. Okay, so I struggle with interrogator. So interrogators in a fight, they will ask questions, right? Do you know what this is doing to me? Why are you doing this? What should I do to stop this from happening? Whatever. But it's like trying to get more and more and more and more and more information about an interaction in order to gain more control through understanding. Now that is also very toxic as well because it doesn't leave space in the other person for privacy, right, at all. Like you have to understand their internal workings 100%, and that is still anxiety, and it's also still a form of manipulation because if you're trying to get somebody to see your point of view, that is actually a form of violence, right? Believe it or not. Then the third one is intimidator. Okay, so we all know intimidators. Those are the people, and they don't necessarily have to beat you or push you around, but their body language, right? When you don't agree with them, you feel slightly unsafe. And they're not necessarily even aware of it, right? But also at a very young age, they learned that this was a way to get energy from others. So, give me your energy or else, agree with me or else, love me or else, tell me I'm right or else. And then lastly, we've got aloof. Now, aloof, those are the James Deans standing against the wall, smoking a cigarette, being nonplussed. And aloof people pull back, right? But that's also a form of manipulation because they want people to chase them. They want people to feel unsure. And this is actually, when I was younger, I always thought aloof was the cool kid of the quartet. But it's actually a very, very wounded way to get energy from other people because you have to cut yourself off from your own emotions and you're scared, right? You are scared of intimacy. You actually believe that intimacy will consume you because when you were a child, it consumed you, right? So we've all used all four of this, right? Especially like in a massive fight, all four come up. But how can we deal with this? How can we deal with this? Shadow work. Seeing our shadow, very important. Seeing where we are manipulating, not lying to ourselves. So let's go to the archetype of the vampire. Now, archetypes are absolutely amazing. Myths, stories, they tell us so much more because of the deep code hidden within them. So let's look at the vampire, right? So firstly, the vampire died at a young age, right? And when it died, it got frozen. So this is when we develop, and at a certain part in our development, something really traumatic happens, and then emotionally we don't grow any older, right? So some people are stuck at 10 years old, some people are stuck at 20 years old, some are even stuck at 4 years old, right? So now the vampire is ageless, like Peter Pan, because he can't see his shadow. He does not want to look into a mirror, right? Because if he looks into a mirror, he has to see what he is, and he can't do that. He can't stand the light because the light shows him his shadow, right? So he can't be in the light. Also, he has to suck the life force energy out of other people in order to sustain life because his heart isn't beating anymore. Now, if we look at how people can become energy vampires, right? So let's look at the player. We can also look at what would be the opposite side of the spectrum. People that manipulate you with poor me, right? In relationships as well. This is actually a very sad dynamic. And why do people fall for this? They fall for this due to trauma bonds because we always want to subconsciously repeat what we experienced in childhood. So if we experienced aloof behavior, we would be attracted to aloof. If we experienced poor me, we would be attracted to poor me. So how do you deal with this, right? How do you deal with it? So this is one of the ways where fighting fire with fire could actually help. So if somebody becomes really poor me-ish, right, then if you don't have the energy to call them on it right there and there because you know that they can't see themselves, right, they're too unaware, then you can do poor me too. Oh yeah, no, it's difficult for me too. I can't help you, right? It's difficult for me too. So we have to gauge our friends and we have to see who has the ability to see their blind spots and who does not, right? But it's not up to us to change other people. It's up to us to change ourselves. Because if we heal this dynamic, if we see which one of these we're playing out, and we see how the ego is actually saying, no, but we're justified in doing this, right? And then we go to that wound and we see that it's an angel that turned to a demon, right? So in other words, when we were kids, we needed to, say, I'm not feeling well. And then we got more attention. But now that we're older, that angel has become a demon. Or we needed to distantiate ourselves from, let's say, toxic parents who were smothering us. But now we can not be in a relationship, right? Because now we're aloof. So we have to look at that, and we have to really look at our wounds, and we have to really look at our shadow. And we have to see that the heart has been replaced by the ego, and the ego needs to control. The ego needs to manipulate, right? In order to feel safe, in order to feel loved. But the heart knows that we're all one, right? So loving yourself, firstly, very, very importantly, and seeing this, right? Seeing this, and then actually going for vulnerability, true vulnerability. It's easy to say that poor me is very vulnerable, but not really with themselves, right? Because they're not taking radical personal responsibility. So radical personal responsibility, so this is my love language, by the way, my new love language. Radical personal responsibility, clarity, consistency, and what was the other one? Authenticity. So to love yourself, to look at these forms, right, and to be honest with yourself, you're getting something from it. And also, if you are on the empath side and somebody is being aloof, to realize that they're wounded. That's the wounded child within them. Don't fall for the facade, right? And see your own narcissism as the empath who is chasing this aloof person. Why would you do that? Why would you settle for somebody that does not have the capacity to see you? So I hope this helped today, guys. Have a beautiful day. Bye.